It is in the stillness that we remember what is true. And it is in these very small places and these small moments where there is calm and where there is, more importantly, love, that we come back to some very profound and simple knowing. And this is where I hope that we continue to edge a little further into this evening, my friends. It was earlier in the week that on social media, I asked a question: what do you need to hear on Sunday? What would you like to hear in the sermon? And I got quite a few responses. There were a lot of responses, people wanting to hear about forgiveness. At least 3 or 4 folks asking about, how do I forgive myself? How do I forgive someone else? Also, how do we come into a place of forgiveness that looks like letting go if there is an estrangement within a family? There were responses, people asking for hope, how to have hope in a weary world. There were at least 3 or 4 people wanting to hear about hope. There were also folks that wanted to hear everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. And in that same vein, folks that wanted to hear about keeping everything in the day. I appreciated this one. This was an outward focus of what someone wanted to hear about, and that is ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire in Palestine. Then this was a little different. A couple people wanted to hear about one of the 10 commandments: honor thy father and mother. How do we observe that? How do I do that? What does that mean? Another one was contrition, confession, amendment. Still others were anything about healing, anything about meditation. This one I also, that caught my attention was, how do we maintain our humanity in the midst of so much inhumanity? Also, harmony of thoughts, words, and deed. I think that covered it. Again, I think the biggest ones were hope and forgiveness. And I sat with these, and I didn't look at these as people just jotting things down in a Facebook comment section. I looked at these like prayer requests, maybe even prayer pleas, asks, demands, people needing to hear something, anything. How do I have hope? How do I keep going? How do I forgive? Yes, I would say these are more like prayer asks, prayer pleas, prayer requests, prayer demands, and to be taken seriously. And so, as I said the other day in a follow-up to this, I said I'm going to incorporate everything into the sermon tonight. Now, I've taught about forgiveness. I've done workshops on forgiveness. I have a definition about forgiveness. As far as hope, there's the hope cycle, and most of you were there for that hope cycle teaching, that series. I think that it's important to go under the surface with these prayer requests and these prayer pleas, these prayer demands. And so that's what I did when I sat with them. And I felt, y'all, I don't know if any of you were the ones to chime in here, but I would venture to say that you've had some of these prayer pleas, these prayer requests. And so when I sat with them, I realized something very important, and that was this: that there is a common denominator in all of them, and that is people, you, us, whether it's forgiveness or whether it's a ceasefire in Gaza, that we are desperately wanting change. Change. And from the change, again, be it a forgiveness, be it a piece of hope, be it honoring thy father and mother and how to do that, from that place of change, that it brings us to healing. From change to healing. From change to healing. And that healing may look like justice, or that healing may look like calm for you. That healing may look like peace within a family. That healing may look like balance. So we're looking for change. We need it. We need it. And however you believe about this time that we're living through, it is important to cut the crap, and it is important to get serious and look at ourselves square between the eyes and say that there is pain that is happening for people as individuals, for communities that have been under attack since what seems like time immemorial, or since time immemorial. And with and from, pardon me, this pain, that there must be a change and that there must be a healing. And so what are we going to do? I think for a lot of years, friends, I have walked a line between, between the mental and the mystic. And the mental part is very important. Again, we could just take forgiveness tonight, for example, and we could really get into it and roll up our sleeves. And I could give you a lot of tools about how to forgive. But I don't want to do that. Not tonight. Maybe another time, but not tonight. Because again, this common denominator struck me as far as change and healing. And so I want to ask us, and I'm saying us, not you. I'm saying us for a reason, like in a beseeching way, for us to come back to something that I mentioned in our pray-up. Renee and Manny and myself, we prayed prior to service. And that is to come back to a place that I believe. Oh, that was, I'm hearing an echo on my voice. That's a lot. A place that we know about, that we may have forgotten about. Now, some people call this God, and I'd like to call it mysticism. So for the remainder of this, however many minutes that's going to go on, I'd like us to alter what we think we know, and alter ourselves and this reality just a little bit to get somewhere different. And the reason why, again, just to be clear, is because we are living in a time of great upheaval, where there is pain and there is suffering and there is violence. And it's been going on in Palestine for a really long time. And it's been going on in this country in a myriad of ways for a really long time. And it may be going on for you in your own personal life for a really long time. And I think we forget that we have a superpower. And that superpower is a mystical place that some may call God, that some of you may call your faith. And we forget to really commit to it. So the two words, if you don't hear anything else tonight, are commitment and connection, and maybe not necessarily in that order. I'm going to read something from actually a Catholic priest. And his name is Father Ralph Diorio. And this is a book called The Healing Power of Affirmation. And I'm going to change the language a little bit after I read it, so it's fitting since we know we're in a multi-path community here. But just take a listen and let these words land where they will, that is comfortable for you. So Father Diorio writes, not too long ago, I remember reading an article about a world-famous surgeon and scientist. He looked over the state of the world, analyzed it as best as he could, then publicly made his statement that the modern day's decadence was due to the loss of the sense of holiness. It seemed a strange indictment, all the more shocking to hear from a scientist. Another magazine writer was curious to discover what this statement really meant. Studying it closely, he kept wondering what the doctor meant by this, quote, sense of holiness. He finally concluded that the sense of holiness was nothing less than a sense of the presence of God. Soon the writer began to pray. He interviewed religious men and women, and his conclusion was that this presence of God must not be, as it seemed to be for so many drifting souls, a vague concept of an unreachable God, safe in his heaven and unmindful of earth. Again, I know some of the language is different for some of you, but try and stay with the basic thoughts here. This presence of God had to be a living presence, really existing within us, associated with our daily lives, our families, our work, our interactions with friends and foes, with all our neighbors, whoever and whatever they might be. Yes, ROL family, what I am suggesting tonight is that before we do anything, before we go anywhere, before we redefine and take a workshop on forgiveness or try and learn what compassion is, before we do any of that, we need to remember that we have a superpower that is divine, that there is something that is working in our favor that is beyond thoughts and words, that is in the unseen and the seen, that is in the visible or the invisible, that is the ancestors that Renee was just calling in, that Renee was just singing about, that we have circles upon circles upon circles of guides that are ready for us, that love us. We need to remember that we have an infinite amount of tools that are spiritual, that are mystical in nature, and that these things must never be squashed. These things must never be diminished. This must never be dismissed. Now, some of you may be going, yeah, Rev, I have a faith. What are you talking about here? Or some of you may be so tapped in spiritually and in the mysticism. It's about the recommitment and the recommitment, because I think the reality is, if we're really honest, all of us can up the ante with our spiritual juju, our spiritual mojo, our relationship with whatever it is that you believe in, a relationship with God, a relationship with Vishnu, a relationship with the Buddha, a higher power, a relationship with your higher self. Yes, my friends, I'm talking about upping the ante to the commitment and the connection that is God, that is holy, that is the presence, that is energy, that is love. Do you feel this? Does this make sense to you? Does it? I pray it does. Basically, it's like this sermon is like saying, first things first. First things first. We need forgiveness. We want forgiveness. We want calm. We want peace. We want justice. This isn't about spiritual bypass. No, this is not about spiritual bypass. I just did a sermon last month about spiritual bypass. This is about getting clear, about recommitting in a really radical way, a way that is just where we can hardly wait. We can hardly wait to be with or in, how about that? In the mysticism. We can hardly wait to get on our cushion if we're meditators. We can hardly wait. Like, if you're like me, I'm so humanist in my spirituality. I hardly wait to connect with Manny and Renee in the prayer, because for me, I feel God burgeoning. I feel the billowing that is source, where we are so hungry. We're so hungry for the holy. We're so hungry to feel the presence, because it changes us and it heals us. And it is from that place of change, and it is from that place of healing, that we can begin to meet these concepts of, how do I forgive? How do I keep my humanity in the midst of so much in humanity? And we just might find that the answers are already there, because we're more resourced. There is a passage in the Bhagavad Gita that I have always loved, because it encapsulates this devotion, this kind of bhakti, devotional love. And it says, and this is for those of you that might want to look this up later or now, it's Bhagavad Gita 6:30. For those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost, and they are never lost to me. I'm never lost, and nor are they ever lost to me. Whether it is the terribleness and the violence that is happening in Palestine, whether it is terrible sadness in your heart from loss or estrangement, we need to be as desperate as only the dying can be, to have a radically big experience of that which is beyond thoughts and words. I think it's easy, even for the best of us, to find it challenging maybe to always go to God in prayer, as it's often said. Go to God in prayer in those hard times. We've had a very hard, however many years, haven't we? It's been an intense, however many years, I don't know. Take your pick, how many years? And the concept of, like I said earlier, commitment, and with that, maybe the word is actually recommitment and reconnection. That concept feels very important right now, to sit and ask, yeah, where am I with my relationship with that which is unseen? This place of mysticism, perhaps. I like thinking of it like that because I think that there's something that just knows. We don't need to have we don't necessarily need to have scripture for it. It's those still small moments in the morning where we just feel something. It's those exchanges that we might have with people that we love and care about. It might be a touch of someone's hand, or when someone touches your hand. It might be, I'm thinking of Renee coming from these revels, pardon me, witnessing art, witnessing the theater, and being reminded of, again, this place that is beyond thoughts and words. I pray that we can go back there so that when we have to come forward, when we have to be in this here and now place and not altered in reality, but very much grounded, that we have a sustenance, that there is a sustenance, and that there is a joy and a resourcefulness. For those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost to them, and they are never lost to me. In these coming days, this is my ask, and this is the ask from all of us, that we're hungry for spirit, source, God, if that works for you, that we thank the ancestors, that we tune in, that we tap into energy that is moving and grooving, because it's all around. All of these things, it's all around us. It's within us. It's above, it's below, it's in the void. It is everywhere. And when we are so concretized in that, I'm not saying that it's perfect or that the answers will just be so easy, as far as forgiveness, as far as all of these things that people were saying. But we might just be surprised that there might, in fact, be some answers illuminated for us. And one thing it will surely do in fostering that change and that healing that can come about is it will make us open and more ready for it. It'll make us not only more open and more ready, more resourced, and more resilient. Again, for those who see me everywhere and see all things in me, I am never lost to them, and they are never lost to me. Some of you may hear the Psalms right now. Be still and know that I'm in the midst of you. May we be very young in our spirits and return and recommit and reconnect. connect. For your change, for your healing, for our change.